Here. My name is Eric Hayden. I'm a meteorologist with the Weather Service in Newport Morehead City. We brought more people with us this morning. We have a lot of people at the office that are working 24/7, and we wanted to dive into different aspects of the forecast. We've got Ryan Ellis. He's our science person in the office. He's going to talk a little bit about how dry weather will play a role and when we see the snow and how much. Zach Chalmers is one of our newer forecasters. He's kind of jumped into things. He's helped us with the briefings the last couple of days. He's going to go over the cold weather. We still think that's going to be one of the big headlines, keeping that snow around that falls later tonight and tomorrow. And Olivia Cahill, she's helping us with our forecast today. She's going to go over timing. That's probably one of our biggest questions we always get. When is it going to start? When is it going to be the heaviest? And when will it stop? So she's got some cool graphics kind of to show you hour by hour on the forecast coming up. I'll kick things off. The big change overnight, that continued upward trend with increasing snowfall totals. And we do expect blowing and drifting snow. The snow amounts were uncertain yesterday, so we didn't want to add enhanced wording until we became a little more confident. We're more confident now of that snowfall. So we started increasing that language. Blowing and drifting snow, winds 15 to 20, maybe some gusts up to 30 miles per hour. We'll talk about that in a second. And that may create some blizzard-like conditions, especially on the Outer Banks and anybody facing to the due north, because our wind's going to be coming from the north. So if you got an open fetch near water, you're going to have some blowing and drifting snow and poor visibility. And then high confidence that the snow is going to accumulate after sunset. Olivia will talk a little bit more about timing here in a second. As far as the timeline goes, this is largely unchanged from the past couple days. We put a 1 or yellow in there for the snow today. We could see a few snowflakes or pellets this afternoon. We don't think it's going to amount to anything. We really think after sunset, we've been saying that all along, that's when things are going to pick up. We did increase the impact from kind of a moderate high impact to extreme, especially overnight tonight. That's because of the increase in snowfall amounts and also that blowing and drifting snow. If you've been watching the snow across Louisiana, if you've seen any of the web cameras, snow really creates very poor visibility. In addition, with that wind, it'll be quite treacherous, not only slippery conditions on the road, but just poor traveling, not recommended overnight. The snow stops early tomorrow morning, but we left that threat for hazardous travel much of this week. We don't think we'll get above freezing tomorrow, so most of it will stick around. Anything that melts later in the week will refreeze, and we'll have some black ice concerns really through Thursday night. And then the last one, Zach's going to go over this a little bit later, but we're into a stretch of cold weather that will just enhance the snow in terms of keeping it around on the ground for many days. This is not a typical event where we see the snow and then it's melted and gone by afternoon. This will stick around for many days, and that includes major thoroughfares because of the amount of snow and also because of the extreme cold, temperatures below freezing, especially at night. Winter storm headlines have been expanded. Last night, we talked about winter weather advisories farther inland, more of a nuisance snow, a winter storm watch. If we upgrade to a warning, that was more impactful. If we upgrade to an advisory, that would be more of a nuisance. That nuisance snow has shifted up toward the Raleigh area, and we think the whole area will be impacted by snowfall. Lesser amounts up toward Greenville and Kinston, but really not a huge difference between 2 and 6 inches of snow. Once you get snow on the ground, once it's blowing and drifting, it's still going to be very, very hazardous. So we felt very strongly increasing that warning for our whole forecast area. Really shouldn't be out on the roads tonight unless you're like one of us, first responders, working 24/7, something you have to be to. You shouldn't be out on the roads. If you are, use extreme caution, leave extra room in front of you, slow down, because we do expect that snow to overspread our area this evening. The thing everybody's been watching, the snow total map, the theme is the same: lesser amounts to the north and west, higher amounts to the far south and east. But right now we're still talking 2 to 3 inches as far north as Greenville and Kinston, but a huge, huge change as you head farther to the east. It's going to be a dramatic increase the farther east you go. So the Lenoir County, Pitt County line, places like Grifton, Chocowinity, Washington, up through Plymouth, as you continue to head east, that darker shading of blue, more than 3 inches of snow. And then as you get down toward New Bern, Belhaven, those places, more than 4 inches of snow down extending into Onslow County, Richlands, Jacksonville, Half Moon, those areas. More than 4 inches of snow is likely. As you continue to head to the east, at some point, we're going to have a bullseye of the heaviest snow across our area. That's indicated by that yellow shading. So Some places going to see more than 6 inches of snow. Right now, we think it's in these areas from the northern Outer Banks, Kill Devil Hills, Nags Head, those folks up towards Southern Shores, down through mainland Dare County, so Mans Harbor, Englehart, through Oriental, Merriman, Harlow, most of Carteret County, so Newport here at the office, maybe as far west toward Cape Carteret, those locations, Havelock, seeing more than 6 inches of snow. This may shift around a little bit. We do not expect a dramatic change to the forecast between now and when the snow gets started. But until the band of heavy snow sets up, it's really hard to pinpoint where it's going to be. Right now, we think it's going to be here. So very likely, from Jacksonville up through Plymouth East, we're going to see more than 4 inches. But who sees 6, 8 inches of snow or more? This yellow shading can shift around a little bit. On the Outer Banks, the heaviest amounts up toward the northern Outer Banks, you'll notice 4 to 6, Ocracoke Island and Hatteras Island. Mainly a northerly wind. One of our longtime forecasters here, he's been here since the 90s, did a lot of research on the March 1980 storm. He noticed on Hatteras specifically, anytime we got any type of a northeast wind, we would warm up and mix with different types of precipitation. We may have a little sleet or other precip types to contend with here on the central and southern Outer Banks. But we feel very strongly with a predominantly northerly wind, that's a cold wind direction, we will stay mostly snow in these areas, so you will have some appreciable amounts of snow. But right now, the best bet is this yellow stripe area for the very heaviest amount. Can't stress this enough. We think through the daylight hours we'll be fine in terms of accumulating snow, but tonight things go downhill very, very quickly. I'm going to turn it over to Olivia here in a second to get with the timing. I know we don't get a lot of snow. A lot of us don't even have shovels. I've got one because I moved down from New York here about 8 years ago. But if you do have a shovel, take it easy, especially toward the coast, maybe the central and southern Outer Banks. It may be more of a wet snow. Farther inland, it's going to be a pretty dry snow, especially for our area. Usually that doesn't happen, but take your time. Don't be in a rush. Especially if you don't do a lot of physical activity. Unfortunately, we do have heart attacks and back issues with people trying to shovel snow when they're not used to it. So take it easy. You don't need to get it all done at once. So we told you about amounts. Olivia's got the hard part. We want to know when is it going to start and when is the peak. She's going to take us through the night and kind of let you know what we can expect in terms of when the snow actually gets here.
Thanks, Eric. So like Eric just alluded to, some flakes are possible, later this afternoon, early this evening, especially along the coast and the Outer Banks, not so much farther inland. But as we move into this evening, especially after sunset, that's when we're more confident that those impactful accumulations will start to occur. So you should be okay before sunset. If you're picking somebody up from school or an afternoon activity, we shouldn't be seeing those impactful accumulations until after sunset. But if you want to be home before anything starts to occur, I would say probably before that 3 to 4 p.m. range will be probably before you see your first flakes. As we move into the evening, and our chances are going to start to increase from east to west. So our chances are going to increase from the Outer Banks and the coast and move farther inland. This is when we're going to start to see our highest accumulation. So that like 9 p.m. to midnight range. So this is when chances are really going to peak. So this is our chances at midnight. Like I said, this is when we're going to see the peak snowfall amounts happen. And like Eric pointed out, that bullseye of where we're going to see those highest amounts, this is when we're really going to see where that sets up. So as of right now, it's in that area that Eric is circling. But we'll see how that transitions over the next several hours. And then as we move into early tomorrow morning, chances will start to decrease from west to east. So the coastal plain will see chances decreasing the soonest. And then, closer to the coast, we'll see those snow chances lingering for quite a bit. And then as we get closer to sunrise tomorrow morning, again, chances decreasing even more from the intercoastal plain over into the coast. But just because those chances are tapering off, that doesn't mean that the impacts aren't going to persist. So, we're going to see snow potentially lasting along the coast and the Outer Banks into maybe mid-morning, maybe even later into early afternoon tomorrow. We're going to see how it trends. But if you have to be out early tomorrow morning, be sure to leave extra time for travel, because just because the snow has stopped falling, that does not mean that the impacts will not still be just as bad as they were during the overnight hours.
Thank you so much, Olivia. And she did a great job going through it. Every 3 hours, we mentioned weather.gov/Morehead City. You can click on that hourly graph to get some more details. Now, Olivia was talking about when the snow arrives. We've been extremely dry recently. It's been cold. There's one factor that we've talked about determining how much snow we were going to get. We were wrestling with how much dry air do we have, and that may have an impact on when the snow actually gets here. And Ryan Ellis is going to talk a little bit about how the weather itself above us, how dry it is, will impact the timing of the snow.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Well, everybody knows that we put up weather balloons twice a day. Well, when we get that data back, it looks like this to us. And one of the cool things is that the models can give us a picture of what it would look like if we put a weather balloon in the air later on this afternoon or this evening. And so while this looks kind of scary, that's pretty simple. The red line that you see there is temperature, and the green line is dew point. And so the only thing that you need to know is that the further apart these lines are, like Eric's outlining there, that's really dry air. And as the two lines get closer together, those are the areas in the atmosphere that are more moist. So one thing that's going to really determine when the snow actually onsets is how quickly can we get the low levels of the atmosphere to moisten up. So notice that 1 p.m. slide there, there's a lot of dry air at different levels of the atmosphere, but by 4 p.m. you start to see those mid-levels, those gaps between the lines getting smaller, but there's a little yellow line there above, right there where Eric's pointing. That is the area of the atmosphere where snow actually forms. So until we get that to moisten up, we won't get any snow forming. We could see a little bit of sleet at the onset, but until we get that fully moistened up, we're not going to see snow. So if we go further into the evening to 7 p.m., now look at those lines are right on top of each other. That yellow area is covered up. We're definitely getting snow production here. But look at the very surface. We still don't quite know if we are going to be fully saturated at the surface. So somewhere, give or take that 7 p.m. time frame, depending on where you are, this will take longer to moisten up. And then certainly by 10 p.m., the whole atmosphere is moist, saturated, and we should be snowing pretty hard at this point. So that'll be a determination of when it starts, but just remember that, you know, when you see the first snowflake or two, it is going to take a little while to get those impacts that we're expecting. And I will toss it over now to Zach, who's going to really talk about the thing. Everybody's excited about the snow, but the cold is extremely dangerous, and he's got some information for you on the temperatures, not just tonight, but the next couple of nights.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So one of the things that we've really been messaging kind of leading up to this event is that potential for this prolonged period of colder weather, potentially even a multi-day period where our highs barely get above freezing or really close to that freezing mark. And this is pretty impactful because, first of all, it could cause impacts such as, frozen pipes, especially in elevated houses or things that are more exposed to the cold. But it's also going to be impactful with our snow amounts, because when we get that snow cover kind of laying down tonight, you're going to be talking a couple day stretch where that snow is not going to go away quickly. If our temps aren't getting above freezing, we're not going to be melting very quickly. So it's going to stick around for a couple of days. And then the other thing, as Eric mentioned earlier too, is that any melting that you do get, even if it's just a small amount, whether it's during the day when the sun comes out or just the temperature barely dipping above freezing, you could see all of that kind of snow that melts, even if it's just a little bit, is going to refreeze back into black ice. And so that could prolong some of our hazardous travel issues kind of into the later parts of the week, even after this snowstorm has passed. And so tonight or this morning, if you had stepped out into just anywhere outside, you probably felt some of that cold. We had lows get down as 20 in some places. And so we saw wind chills even lower than that, dipping down into the teens. Tonight or tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, we're not looking at quite as cold of temperatures. Lows kind of in the mid 20s inland and then closer to 30 along the coast. But if you flip over to wind chills, we're going to see that they're still going to be pretty chilly tomorrow morning, as low as the low teens in a lot of places. And so we want to make sure that people are bundling up, because this is to the level of dangerously cold wind chills that can cause frostbite on exposed skin. Getting into tomorrow night, so Wednesday night and early Thursday morning, we're going to see our coldest temperatures. That's going to be lows down into the low to mid-teens inland, and then upper 20s along the Outer Banks area. And if we do get that snow cover tonight, we're pretty confident that we're going to see a decent amount of snow across much of the area. Once that snow cover gets laid down, it's possible that those temperatures drop even lower because you can get some nice cooling on top of that fresh snowpack. And with this, when we have winds, we're going to have even lower wind chills, potentially as low as even the mid-single digits in different areas of eastern North Carolina. So, really dangerously cold here, going to cause maybe some issues with black ice as we go throughout the rest of the week. And so we just really want to make sure that you're staying bundled up. We're into this area of cold and extremely cold weather. And so we want to make sure people are wearing, things like hats, face coverings if you're going outside, multiple layers. And so, yeah, this graphic that's here on the screen, we're in either that central category or even all the way to the right in that extreme cold area. So, warm hat, multiple layers, potentially even a face mask if you have one. And really with this too, we also want to make sure that you don't forget your pets. So they are affected by the cold just as much as we are. And so keep them warm, dry, indoors whenever possible. And if you're going outside, make sure that they're bundled up so that way they can stay nice and warm. And so I will turn it back over to Eric to wrap things up.
Great. Very good job, everyone. A little housekeeping, and then we'll all take questions here at the end. We're not planning any more webinars. We will send out another PDF briefing. I know some of the public will view this video recording after we're done. Everybody can see the briefing. It's on our website. And I just, again, love those hourly forecasts. The men and women here at the Weather Service, we're here 24/7 updating this forecast. Year round. You should really bookmark those links because there's a tremendous amount of really good information hour by hour, what we expect with the forecasts going forward. Also follow us on social media. We put a lot of information there as well.